Mass tourism can be defined as a form of tourism which involves tens of thousands of tourists going to the same destination at the same time of the year. It's often the cheapest holiday type, sold as a package deal, and is the most popular form of tourism. There is much debate surrounding what impact mass tourism has on a destination, and naturally this will vary between locations where there has been a positive or a negative impact. One country which has been negatively impacted by the growth in mass tourism is Kenya, where mass tourism has negatively impacted wildlife, landscaping and people. During 2014, 1.2 million tourists visited Kenya, making it a mass tourist destination. Kenya is home to over 100 mammals and has become a popular destination to go on safari. The tourism surrounding this industry, however, is having a negative impact on the wildlife. People whilst on safari in the wildlife reserves drop litter which can be dangerous towards the animals. The trucks the tourists are driven around in also pollute the environment the animals are living in and damage the roads. Tourists also want to be as close as possible to the wildlife, which can be unhealthy for the animals, changing their nature or causing them stress and anxiety. The changing lifestyles of the locals are also impacting the wildlife, which ultimately is a result of tourism. For example, the Maasai population, who were once nomadic, have been forced to leave their mutt and wattle homes and have moved to a more permanent settlement along the border of the Mara Reserve. The animals who inhabited this land have now moved in and out of the reserve and are competing for land with the Maasai people. The Maasai population are also planting large-scale crop cultivations, which comes as part of a settled lifestyle. The wildlife, therefore, will lose out more land due to the crop cultivations. The landscaping of Kenya, therefore, has also been negatively impacted as a result of mass tourism. Kenya not only draws tourists in for the wildlife but also for the beaches on the Indian Ocean. However, years of mass tourism has resulted in rapid environmental degradation and negative socio-cultural impacts in certain areas. With rapid growth in tourism, this has impacted landscapes as facilities such as hotels, restaurants, leisure facilities have opened to accommodate the tourists, which have taken land away what was once occupied by the locals and the wildlife. Tourists who visit Kenya as a holiday destination go there to experience the untouched landscapes and experience the fantasy of a simpler life. However, the impact of mass tourism, the impact it's having on Kenya's environment and landscaping, will soon see these natural and beautiful aspects lost to mass tourism. The people of Kenya have also been negatively impacted through mass tourism. During the year of 2014, tourism accounted for 10.5% of Kenya's overall GDP and 9.2% of employment. The high employment percentage, however, is not representative of the locals who are employed through the tourist market. Many foreigners reside in Kenya solely for work purposes. Specialist jobs in Kenya tend to be given to Westerners who immigrate to Kenya for the purpose of that job. The jobs fulfilled by the locals tend to be low skilled and low paid, whereas Westerners have higher and better paid positions, which can lead to tensions with a them and us attitude. There have also been reports Kenyans believe the best seats in restaurants and coffee shops are earmarked for tourists, and that tourism has created a silent culture of racism amongst the locals and the tourists. Some Kenyans have suggested that locals are being ignored in leisure facilities as waitresses are concentrating more on the tourists who have cash available for larger tips. Now, tourism is an integral part of Kenya's economy, and so it's important that the tourism is sustainable and has a positive impact on all aspects of the country. There are various ways in which these negative impacts, which I've mentioned, can be reduced. For example, with the wildlife, care should be taken when tourists are on safari that they're not dropping litter, and they should be educated on the harm this can cause to the wildlife. By building viewing platforms, this can also reduce the emotional damage tourists can cause to the animals as they're kept from getting too close to them. Attention should also be paid to the vehicles that are being used by the safari staff, that they are low emission vehicles causing as little pollution as possible. These are all changes which would need to be implemented by the people running the safaris, so the effectiveness of these changes would be determined by the cooperation of the owners, however, so that could be difficult to do. With the landscaping, Safaris and beaches for tourists should be limited to a smaller number, which leaves some beaches tourist-free and limits the damage to the environment. More areas of land should be made into national parks where buildings are legal, which would protect the animals and the homes of the locals. This would make it impossible to be bought by hotel or restaurant chains. However, this is something that would need to be approved by Kenya's corrupt government, and so this, again, may be difficult to really achieve. Research carried out by Dogan found that the development of tourism has had an effect on the socio-cultural characteristics of residents, such as daily routines, social lives, habits, values and beliefs. These factors may lead to psychological tension. This is apparent through the impacts mass tourism has had on Kenyans, such as being relocated and being treated second to the tourists. Minimising the tensions already caused is something which will be very difficult, as it will greatly depend on how the owners of restaurants and coffee shops train their staff and show respect to the locals. In regard to the housing issue, this is something the Kenyan government again would need to look at to stop tourist resorts being built on land which is already occupied. Hotels and so on should only be developed on land which is not housing locals. By showing locals respect in these matters, this should minimise tensions growing. However, it's inevitable that most locals will have an attitude towards tourism, which will be difficult to change, and so the focus really should be on to prevent further locals from feeling being put out. And thank you for listening.